Good evening, everybody. It's me again. Welcome to EnggTALK 3. My name is Tony T, and I'll be your MC for tonight. This mic is really high, and now we're good. I would like to start by respectfully acknowledging that we are situated on Treaty 6 territory. This is the territorial lands of First Nations and Métis people. And, as I said before, this is EnggTALK number 3. Welcome everybody, because this is Alumni Weekend. We have the theme for tonight as Engineering Edmonton. Tonight, we're going to be celebrating the diverse ways that engineers affect our community, and that's done through cool projects, community engagement, and the not-so-obvious ways that engineers build our communities. EnggTALK is brainstormed, coordinated, and hosted by EnggYAC. This is the Faculty of Engineering's Young Alumni Council. We have been formed in March of 2016, and we are a group of passionate, community-minded volunteer engineers. We're focused on engaging and connecting engineering alumni of the past 15 years, and this is done through socials, networking, education, and volunteering experiences. I would like to inform you that we have our friend, local artist, AJ Loudon over there. He's brought to us an interactive art piece for everyone to enjoy. And how that would work is you could either run up to his piece of art right now and just draw on it. Not right now, that'd be rude to me. Draw on it. Or run over to his book and write down an answer to how does engineering build our community. If you don't feel like your writing is on point tonight, you could write down in his book, and AJ can write it down on his work for you. AJ is a multidisciplinary artist with a background in graffiti and street art. He's painted in many countries around the world, and he's focused on medium to large-scale murals. He aims to transform spaces to make them more inspiring, informative, and memorable. And we have a few housekeeping things to take care of. We have our emergency exits are located right past AJ in that deep corner over there, or if you wanted to run a little bit further, we have some stairs over at the elevators over there. That's where our restrooms are as well. The male restroom is closest to the elevator. Our ladies' room and our family and gender neutral restrooms are just around the corner past the elevators, and there's a door that'll lead you. There's signs, you'll find it. Our refreshments for tonight, we have a cash bar, and we're featuring beer from Campio Brewing Company. Thank you very much, Campio, for coming out here tonight. Our first speaker, he will be providing opening remarks for us tonight. We have for us Ward 9 Councillor Tim Cartmell. He has completed both his undergrad in civil and his master's in engineering management right here at the U of A. And he is the owner and founder of Lemtra Projects. They manage and design building projects such as 3 senior lodges in the Edmonton Greater Foundation and the Expo Center for Northlands. Before being elected to public office in 2017, he's worked for Alberta Treasury Board and Edmonton Catholic Schools. He's passionate about giving back to the community with over 30 years of community volunteering experience, such as various community league roles, a minor hockey league coach, and various roles on discipline and practice standards committees in APEGA. He's received the APEGA Summit Award for Community Service in 2013 and the Engineers Canada Meritorious Service Award in 2014. Please help me join hands together for Tim Cartmell.
Well, thank you, Tony. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. It is really a pleasure to be here, back at almost at home with the engineering faculty here at the U of A, to represent Edmonton City Council and Mayor Don Iveson. That's an awful, awful photo. I wish that we could change that. I don't know where that came from, but thank you very much for that very kind introduction. I've been asked to speak very briefly just about how my experience as a professional engineer helps and aids in my work as a city councillor. And I guess my story is rather unique, and so just very briefly, my paternal great-grandfather came to Edmonton in 1923 from England. He was an artist. He wanted to paint the snow. So he came here in 23 and brought his family over in 24. Which sounds like a long time ago. That's nearly 100 years ago now that I think about it. And so my grandfather was an artist. He wasn't quite a scholar, but he cherished knowledge and reading and information. And I remember many times at my grandfather's house with my father and my uncle, and a lot of political debate and discourse and back and forth. My maternal grandfather came here from the United States with his family. He was the second oldest of 12, and he himself had 13 children. He came here to Edmonton not long after the Second World War, and was given, what happened in those days was they were given a quarter section of land if you came out of the forces and developed that. His land was at the end of 109th Street. And if you follow the power lines south of 51st Avenue down 109th Street, they end at my grandfather's house, the house that he built. And he built that community. He had a grade 8 education. When he was in the war, he would take a ticket because you would get a 15-cent a day raise the more tickets you had. So he had a carpenter ticket and a welder ticket and a drafting ticket. And the collision of those two families led to, my parents and then, the creation of me, as it were. And my dad was a teacher, my mom was a nurse, and they were very much into caring and giving and public service and giving back and the nurturing of others. And so that led to me that there's the underpinnings of my life are those things that were all very much Edmonton focused, and we're all very much about giving back to the community. And so those were sort of the early days of my life. I'm just seeing myself in this monitor, and I've got a very red face. I just want to say that I was out all day at Community League Day events, and I got way too much sun, so it's not that I'm embarrassed or any of that. I just got too much sun. My dad had summers off, obviously, as a teacher, and so we would go on these long holidays, and we would go to different places on motoring trips, camping trips down to the States, to Disneyland or to Toronto. We went all the way to Newfoundland and back one summer, and we'd travel through these cities, and I would see these cities, particularly the coastal cities, that had these big bridges and these big railways and these big freeway intersections and these big buildings. And back in those days in Edmonton, the tallest building in Edmonton was the CN Tower. When I was a kid, we would travel back and forth across the city in the winter months, and you could see that tower from anywhere in Edmonton. That told you where downtown was. It was the only building we had. So for me, there was a real fascination on how these cities got built. Where did they come from? How do you do that? How do you build something that high or that tall or that long or that far off the ground or off the water? So it was really no wonder that I ended up becoming an engineer, because I had that fascination, first of all, with the math and the arithmetic and how those things are actually done. And that's how I found myself into engineering and becoming a structural engineer and ultimately doing work in project management. But beyond that, I still had this underpinning of public service that came from those people that I was telling you about. And so I began volunteering. And it's amazing how much crossover there is between the education we get and the training we get as engineers, first of all, and how that leads into other ways of building community and building cities and doing the work that I do now. Kids ask me just what engineers are, and my simplest answer is that engineers are people that use science to solve problems. And it is about problem solving. It is about that ethic. In my professional career, I've worked on some really interesting projects like those seniors lodges for the Greater Edmonton Foundation. That was social housing. It still is social housing. It's essentially for elderly people that need a bit of a rental supplement and need a place to live, a comfortable place for communal living and fellowship and action. And I was involved in those projects at a very early age in my career, and combined that with a lot of community service. And so I guess all of that is my way of saying that all of those things we learn, that obligation we take to serve the community, that code of ethics that says that we first hold paramount the community, the greater good, and the environment, and that we, as we are taught and as we go through our careers, we learn how to collaborate, how to come together, how to solve problems. usually in a calm and measured and apolitical and intelligent way, where we take the information that's put before us and we come together to find the best way forward, the next best thing to do, the next best dollar to spend, the next best solution. And so as I've come through my career, I can tell you that things like acknowledging that we're on the traditional land of the Treaty 6 territory has only just become part of the narrative. The idea that we need to focus on how our climate is changing because 7 billion people on this planet is having an effect, and we need to think about that. And we are trained with not only with that information and that data and that analytical ability, but with that ethic that says we are the stewards. We need to figure this out, and we need to lead people, lead communities, lead governments, lead elected officials in doing that work, in providing that technological underpinning that not only offers up what the problems might be and what the risks might be, but also provides the solution set that will guide us through. I'm tremendously proud to be an engineer. I try to bring that ethic and that let's just get to the solution kind of an approach to my work as a councillor, and it is in that journey as a professional engineer through that learning, through being here, through that career, that I continue to build cities in a much different way than I used to through my work today. So I offer that. I am so envious of all these young faces I see, because you're just starting and you get to go and do a lot of these things that I'm 30 years along, and the future is really bright in terms of what you're going to be able to do with it and what you're going to be able to bring to it, and that's really exciting for you. So I'll leave you with that. I really hope you enjoy the evening. There's lots of different information and topics that are coming forward. I think it'll be very interesting, and thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Councillor Cartmell, for your speech. I think that was an amazing family story, and I'm certainly proud to be an engineer after that speech, at least. Our first presenter is Scott Buick. He is a 2018 civil engineering grad from the U of A, and he's the founder of Next Level Talks, which is dedicated to personal development. He's currently a project engineer at Select Engineering, and he is presenting the Metropolis Mindset, Engineering Projects for the People. Please put your hands together for Scott Buick.
All right. So welcome to EnggTALK number 3 and Alumni Weekend. I think we're gonna have some really cool presentations tonight. I'm really excited to be here. And yeah, thank you all for coming. We have beer here too, so we can't really go wrong at this point. Yeah, let's get to it. So, my presentation is called The Metropolis Mindset, Engineering Projects for the People. So a little bit about myself. My name is Scott Buick. I graduated last year from civil engineering. So I've been a civil EIT for about a year and a bit. And I'm here tonight because I have a passion for cities and urban engineering projects. So it has always been fascinating to me, that as engineers, we can create spaces that generate value and meet the needs of society. And this has always been super intriguing. We can make a difference, we can form community, we can shape, the society we're living in. So I think that's an awesome aspect of being a civil engineer and for all engineers. So starting off, why do cities matter? Has anyone here read Triumph of the City, the book? Boom, we got 1, 2, okay. Anyways, that book, I have a few ideas from that book based through my slides tonight. If you like anything I'm saying at all or are even remotely interested, that book is probably for you. It's a really good read. One of the quotes in that book quotes, 5 million more people every month live in cities of the developing world, and in 2011, more than half of the world's population is urban. This basically means more and more people are moving into cities. Cities are becoming more prominent in today's society, and they're becoming critical to, where we live. In my opinion, I think cities are our greatest invention. They generate wealth and improve living standards, and they also provide density, interaction, and networks that make us more creative and productive. This is the biggest aspect, in my opinion. The great prosperity of London, New York, Tokyo, are all based on their ability to produce new thinking. With this increased density, we are more agile. We have the ability to create new ideas, share these new ideas, and in turn, innovate. And that's why cities are really engines of innovation. So moving forward, why cities need engineers? Well, that one's pretty easy. Engineers need to build the city. We are the undercover brains working behind the scenes to create a society where all individuals have an opportunity to live the best life they possibly can. You know, we bring the ideas from paper and make them real. And at the same time, while doing that, we are creating the built environment. We are creating the communities that people are living in, and thereby we are directly influencing the communities we're creating and, you know, the characteristics that form the city's identity. This picture I took on my trip 2 years ago. I went to Dubai. And this is just a prime example of ideas that are amazing on paper, and it takes the work of an engineer, the vision of an engineer, to really put stuff like this to life. And these buildings, these roads and everything play a major part in the development of Dubai, you know, creating their culture, creating a truly international city that is so strong in the society we know today. Another city I wanted to talk about is Paris. And more importantly, I want to talk about the French Revolution. So a little bit of history. I'll be super quick with it. It won't hurt a bit, okay? So the French Revolution, basically back in time, the people of France, the people of Paris, essentially bound together with their ideals and as a collective overthrew the monarchies. This created a global decline in monarchies throughout Europe and throughout the world, and ultimately created the liberal democracy we know of today. Hugely substantial in the world we know today because it's basically our modern form of government. Basically what I'm trying to get at is that without the density and connectiveness of Paris at that time, these ideas never really would have been, you know, brought forward. They would have stayed probably in one or two people's heads. They wouldn't have been able to collaborate, combine their ideas, and ultimately make it a reality to overthrow these monarchies. And yeah, Paris was one of the global centers of social and political ideas at that time in the world. Today, since the 17th century, Paris has been one of Europe's major centers of finance, commerce, fashion, and art. You know, the density of Paris, even today, shows us that great ideas can be innovated upon, and that having lots of people in a concentrated environment, thinking together, working together, can make amazing things possible. A cool engineering project that you guys might not know of in Paris is called the Eiffel Tower. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful steel structure, but it's also more than that. It was essentially built for the World Fair, but also to commemorate the centennial of the French Revolution. You know, in addition to demonstrate France's industrial strength of the world at that time. Today, it stands as a strong symbol for all of us in terms of human progression and success. So not only is it a great engineering project that shows, you know, great mental strength, keeping that thing standing up and looking so great, but also shows us that together with our ideas, we can make massive change and change the course of human history. Another city, I'm sure you guys saw this one coming, is New York City, the big guy. Initially, New Amsterdam, established by the Dutch West India Trading Company, it quickly became New York after it was taken over by England. At this time, it actually surpassed Boston to be England's most important port. Booming with business, super good. And in the 19th century, their population boosted from 60,000 to 800,000. Because of business and the culture they were creating and the ability to, you know, come over, start a new life, build your business, and make a living was super attractive to people all around the world, creating tons and tons of immigration. Eventually, it became America's superport with its central location, its deep harbor, and, you know, became the hub in the hub and spoke shipping system of the United States of America. Today, New York is considered the paradigm of urbanity. You know, it became so strong because it attracted so many people throughout all its years. It is a city of creativity, a city of entrepreneurship, and, you know, it stands for freedom and cultural diversity. It invites everyone. It lets everyone come in, and people want to come in because they can start that business, they can start that new life, and they have the ability to be welcomed into the culture because of its diversity. Another example similar to the Eiffel Tower, as we can see peeking up through there, is the One World Trade Center. This beautiful glass building is the tallest in the Western Hemisphere, 6th tallest in the world, and extremely environmentally friendly. But at the same time, again, has a very deeper meaning for, the community and the humans in New York. It is to remember and was rebuilt after the destruction of the original World Trade Center complex. This is proof in New York's belief in itself and its sheer confidence. It essentially, with that one building being built, restored all of Lower Manhattan and really reinvigorated the culture within downtown and basically rebuilt the amazing city that was once crumbled. Moving forward, I want to talk about Edmonton, the city of champions. I'm going to talk about a few different aspects of our city that I think are really important and that I think are huge in us taking that next step forward. One is our new communities. So these big master plan communities and new neighborhoods around our whole city. I think they're a great aspect of our city, and they're very attractive to a lot of people. With new innovative architecture and design, we have various housing forms. It's no longer boring rows and rows of houses. We have different price points, different aesthetics. It's very visually pleasing. In addition, there's a huge focus on nature. So there's parks, there's trails, there's walkways, and there's also stormwater ponds, which I think are absolutely beautiful and also serve an amazing purpose because they take care of our stormwater and our rain runoff. Furthermore, there's enhanced interaction. So community is actually being put into the design of these new communities. It's no longer just about living on a street and being beside your neighbor, It's about interacting with everyone. So whether it's parks, playgrounds, plazas, schools, rec centers, community clubhouses, lakeside developments, everything is being brought in and truly making everything very attractive because people can now interact in the places that they're living in. An aspect or project I wanted to touch on under this kind of umbrella is rec centers. So this is a picture of the anticipated Lewis Farms Rec Center out on the west side of town. Construction anticipated to start 2021, completion in 2025. I think rec centers are amazing for our city. More than half of the year we're freezing. It's dark. It's kind of brutal, to put it honestly. These places allow us to get out of our homes and get into the community and really still interact with each other at the same time, whether that's through physical activity, reading in their libraries, learning centers, they have everything. And they have the ability to bring people, out of bed, even when it's tough in the winter, and, get out and do something and be with the community. Another aspect, of course, is the downtown revitalization. First bullet there is our big, massive 25-acre development with, condos, public plaza, sports, entertainment, retail, office space. This ICE district is amazing for our downtown. It's making downtown an attraction, and it's truly giving us a place where we as Edmontonians can be with each other, and celebrate our amazing city. With that being said, we're also building Edmonton's potential in other ways. So there's, the 104th Street development, Royal Alberta Museum, the Brewery District, Oliver District. All these things are coming together to make downtown a destination. And people are coming out, using our downtown, and in turn interacting with each other. Furthermore, I think one of the biggest aspects of a downtown revitalization is residential construction. The best way to keep people downtown after hours is to have them live downtown. People interact in the areas that they're living in, and that is exactly what we need, with the high-rises coming up in Edmonton and the anticipated towers. Hopefully they go through. I really hope they go through and we get more down there because I think it will really boost what we need to do to our downtown to take it to that next level. A project I wanted to touch on under the downtown revitalization umbrella is this massive public plaza that is anticipated for the ICE district. I'm super, super excited for this one because it's finally a place in Edmonton where we can all as a community be together, interact with each other, and do basically anything. Like we can relax, we can meet each other, we can go for coffee. There's gonna be festivals, concerts, programmable 365 days a year. It's gonna be amazing. I was super excited to hear about this. When I went to New York City, Washington Square Park, if any of you guys have been there, I was very fascinated by that area because there were so many people doing so many different things, but all being with each other. And you could still, like, even though I was a visitor, I could feel the interaction, and I felt like I was there and with everyone. And I'm really hoping that this is exactly what this can bring to our city, because I think it's perfect for what we need. Another little project I wanted to touch on, this is nothing set in stone. This is more of a concept or an idea at this time. But the high level line. So those of you who have been to New York, I'm sure you've walked the High Line. An urban elevated park basically runs along old rail lines through the downtown core of New York. Amazing. Same idea here. So this is a multimodal kind of trail connecting the south and the north of Edmonton. Multimodal meaning you can take, the streetcar, you can walk, you can bike, you can do everything. It's accessible to everyone. Seniors, visitors, students, anyone can use it. And it's connecting people to areas of our town that are so amazing already, but making them even more accessible and even more, interactive with everyone. This is a prime example of innovating on urban spaces, and I think is another example of something amazing that could take our city to that next level. So, kind of my last thought here, how do cities succeed? This portion is from the Triumph of the City book. I like it because it kind of just breaks it down into 2 points. So, number one, cities must attract smart and hardworking people. Similar to how New York, when they were booming and business was moving, everyone was coming. Everyone wanted to be a part of it. They were excited to be a part of it. And having different things like, our beautiful new communities, our downtown ice district, different cool projects like that, things we're building, will attract these people towards us. And that's why the engineers are so important, right? We need to build these things to attract these people. Part number two, we need to enable them to work collaboratively. So once they're here, we have to let them engage. We have to let them interact. They need to innovate. As I said before, these are engines of innovation, and we need to let it run its process. There's no such thing as a successful city without human capital at the end of the day. Our ability to connect with one another has been a defining characteristic of our species since day one. Hunting and gathering together, we shared our kills, creating community and culture together, and learning from the past. Like, we've always been with each other, creating things, and we need each other to innovate and make things better. Another quote from that book, kind of right at the end, is, "Our culture, our prosperity, and our freedom are all ultimately gifts of people living, working, and thinking together." And this is ultimately the triumph of the city. So I encourage you guys, the engineers, or anyone living in the city, to really think about different ways that as a city we can attract people and get them coming here and working collaboratively. I think we're doing an amazing job. I think Edmonton is an amazing city, and it's essentially up to us, the human capital, if you will, to work with each other, to speak with each other, to think with each other, and spread these ideas and really innovate. And I think we're on an amazing path. With that being said, this is a picture I skipped. You can look at it for a few seconds. That's it. Thank you. That's all I have for tonight. Enjoy your Saturday night. I have my website up there if you want to check me out. I got some random stuff on there. I'm interested in a few different things. Check it out. Let me know what you think. Hit me up on my email. Let's go for coffee. Let's talk about cities. I would love to do that. For my interactive little piece here, I made a little quiz. It's kind of like fun facts about cities. It's not like hard or scary. I know I get triggered with the word quiz from my previous experiences in this building, but we'll leave that one away. No, it's kind of fun. You just kind of guess the city that the fun fact applies to. So if you want to go to this pollev.com on your devices, you can whip it out. You have to type in the little box there. I think this thing has a laser pointer somewhere. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're going to see this box when you go there. If you type in Buick 100, and you can do the little quiz. I don't know how much time I have, but I'll give you a few minutes to complete it, and then I'll jog back up here, and I'll just run through our answers really quick. Okay? Does anyone know how much time I have? Does anyone know how much time I have till the next speaker? Yeah, it's up there now. Just like the car, yeah, just like the car with an LA in front of it. look at you guys go. This is exciting. I didn't know it showed this either. You guys can apparently race each other. It's like at the movie theaters. I don't know, there was one movie theater when I was a kid and there, like, cars would race across the screen and you'd have to guess. That was the best. Looks like it might stay, maybe. Okay, I'm gonna run through the answers here. So we all got this one. Well, I guess 36% of us. The most populous city in the world by metropolitan area is Tokyo. Yeah. Which is the world's only city to be located in 2 continents? Istanbul. Which city has the longest fully automated metro rail network? That one's Dubai. My God, you guys. Ooh. Which city has a river that flows backwards? That one's Chicago as well. They actually flow that river backwards to divert sewage from their water supply. 5, which is the most visited city in 2018? That one was Bangkok. Which city is the only city to have 1 stop sign? Paris. Yeah, crazy stuff. Which city is home to the world's first gas station? That one's Seattle. Wow, I picked great questions. This is awesome. Number 8, in which city was the World Wide Web invented? That one was Geneva. Yeah, I pranked you guys with the Seattle, I knew it. Which city was meant to be the home of the Eiffel Tower? That one was Barcelona. They actually were gonna give it to Barcelona. They didn't want it because they thought it wouldn't look good in their city. Bit crazy. I think it looks better in Paris anyways. And then 10, which city is home to the world's highest streetcar bridge? That's Edmonton. Okay, that's a good one. That's a good result. Okay, I'm satisfied with that. We all kind of pass. Okay, thank you guys. Have a great night. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Scott Buick, for coming up. I can confidently say that I know nothing about engineering, and I got all of those questions wrong. Those were very interesting and insightful ideas of the importance of cities, and it's definitely gotten me thinking. Our next presenter is Wayne Gong. He is a 2013 civil engineering graduate from the U of A, and he is currently a senior engineer at the City of Edmonton. He's the senior engineer for City of Edmonton for building great neighborhoods and open spaces. He's also the chair and founder of Growers Dozen Community Gardening, presenting Walk, Bike, Live. Let's put our hands together for Wayne Gong. Thank you, Wayne.
Good evening, everyone. Just before I got here, I was cooking for 100 people for my harvest dinner at the community day. All right. Thanks. Okay, my topic tonight is Walk, Bike, Live. First, I want to introduce myself and my wife. We are both transportation engineers, and we graduated from U of A. My wife Shelby really likes walking, and because I have flat foot, so I switched my hobby to biking. But not the spandex kind of biking, so I casually just bike to work and bike to grocery store or the farmer's market in the weekend. And we both live in Edmonton. So this summer, Shelby and I spent 3 weeks in Central Europe, mostly in Netherlands and Germany. As a traveler and engineer, we kind of align our interests with our profession. And we find out Europeans' transportation system is really convenient to use and integrated. So we took the train between cities, and once we got off the train station, we were either walking or rent a bike to see around the city. And here's what we got over the 3 weeks. And I wonder why Europeans' transportation system is so advanced. Is there anything Edmonton can learn from it? And one may argue, well, Edmonton is unique. But I'll tell you that in the 60s, Amsterdam used to build around cars. And it took them decades to become the bicycle capital in the world. So is Edmonton on the right track? And here's the story I want to share with you that I was involved 4 years ago. 76th Avenue and 106th Street are 2 residential collector roads located in Queen Alex. So they form a crossroad. And it was a time when Queen Alexandra was undergoing the neighborhood renewal process. There was a group of committed residents. They wanted to see something different, something more than like-for-like replacement. They want to see the community use the renewal as a good investment for the future of the community, of the neighborhood. And the city we find it's a good opportunity to partner with them. And we formed this project called Engage 10676. The project limit eventually got expanded to increase 7 neighborhoods in total, so in a more holistic approach. And we are a group of interesting people with different backgrounds, like me from the city, and we have representatives from 7 communities, and we also have people from local business organization and from the bicycle organization as well. And together, we created the vision called Walk, Bike, Live. And the focus of the project is to protect the vulnerable road users and also to accommodate all modes of transportation. And we also developed the engagement framework using the spiral process. So basically, we wanted to let our friends, neighbors, and parents at school to sign up to become members of the project. And then we asked them to share this project with their extended social network. And over 2 years, we have received over 460 community members sign up for this project. And then we use different kinds of engagement activities to get the input. And one of the first is using the online survey. So we send survey to these community members, asking their feedback on how they walk, how they feel about walking, biking, living, taking transit, or even driving, using the 106th Street and 76th Avenue. And their initial input are summarized in this heat map. And overall, safety and ease of travel were 2 themes resonated between the respondents. And now with this initial feedback, how are we going to change the road? And you can see this is not easy because there's so many conflicts and constraints. We have these mature trees, and we have parking that we want to protect, and we have bike lanes that we want to accommodate, and we also, this is a bus route. And next, I want to have 2 volunteers come up and play a game with me. Please raise your hand. You'll win prizes. Cool, okay. So those 2. What's your name? Victoria. Mustafa. That's the video. I'm going to explain what we're playing here. So there's a concept we call complete streets. So what are complete streets? Simply, it means that we design streets for all ages and abilities, no matter which mode they take. Oh, thank you. So you can see there's a... All right. So here we are seeing 2 pictures of the road cross section we captured from the Google Street View. So from property line to property line, and you will have different design street elements that you have to rearrange to achieve the vision that all modes of travel can be accommodated. And you 2 have 2 minutes to finish. Go. Yes. Try your best to achieve the best outcome. All right, so we come back to the presentation. All right, so while Victoria and Mustafa are solving the world-class problem, let's come back to my travel, and I'll share some of my inspiration during my trip. So the picture on the left was taken in Groningen, Netherlands. And this is a local intersection. And you can see the sidewalk is level across the intersection. So cars has to slow down and climb over that sidewalk in order to join the main road to prevent any bottom out. It means that the pedestrians are put in a higher place in the top of the modal hierarchy. The goal is to protect the pedestrians. And a picture on the right, so there's a term called woonneuf. What is woonneuf? It's translated to living streets or shared roads. It means that these senior ladies, they can legally walk on the road and share the road space with slow-moving cars. And you can also see the street lighting pole is providing us pedestrian scale lighting, right? And next, biking. I mean, Netherlands is famous for biking. And what I learned most is about the equity and the accessibility they give to the users. No matter what background or where you're coming from, or what kind of physical abilities you have a place in the bike route, and you can bike safely. And then about living space. And I find that Europeans are really good at utilizing public spaces. Like they have a patio at the corner of the intersection, and they are having beer garden under the trees, just on a random plaza. And this placemaking creates lots of conversation, social conversation for people to interact. And people are taking the ownership of the road space for themselves, the public space for themselves. Okay. And this picture, what I want to highlight is that in Netherlands, because of their low car ownership, so instead of building parking lots, they build this courtyard garden within the building, Plaza. And this is a picture when I look out of my balcony in my B&B. And the picture on the bottom, you can see they pay a lot of attention in streetscaping elements, like these flower beds, and also the decorated pavement surface. So the car space is not only to move, so the road is no longer just to move cars, but also for people to linger and enjoy. Excuse me. And people tend to spend more time on the streets. And in urban planning, we call these streets sticky streets because they stick people. Time's up. All right.
Yeah, we weren't sure if this was supposed to be is that supposed to line up with 20 meters?
Oh yeah, the property line is from here to here, so I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And there's no perfect answer, so this to give you understanding on whatever decisions you make, there's a design trade-off, right? You cannot fit everything into a constrained road space, right? Yeah. I think you.
That doesn't work. You can see.
Okay. Okay. I'll try to expand more in the next slides. And thank you all, Victoria and Mustafa. And you can win these buttons, like what I'm wearing. You can have these buttons for yourself. Okay. Oh. 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 Thank you. So like Victoria and Mustafa were playing, so we roll out the similar exercise to the public during one of the 7 engagement workshops. Like I said, so people had a better understanding on what design trade-off they have to make in order to make accommodations for different modes of transportation. And the bottom is a typical cross-section is what it looks like. And then next, we refine our design and presented our preliminary design in one of the open house. You can see there are lots of comments that received. And it was identified that not enough pedestrian improvement were made in the design. That was partly because we cannot even widen the sidewalk, because we have the mature trees on one side we have to protect, and the other side has the private streetscaping. Right? And we cannot just buy out people's land. And then in the pre-construction open house, we put together a life-size clock section highlighting how you gonna feel about this road space, how much space you will have on each mode, like bike lanes and how wide is the car lane, so people have a better visualization on the changes coming in. And then it's construction season. And there are a lot more challenges that we have to overcome, like making drainage accommodation, like avoiding conflict with the underground high-pressure gas line. And also, we have to make sure all the local business have their access maintained. And we have to deal with all the detours. And even more, we invited a local residents to try out this bike lane when we have the survey stakeout. She brought her bike trailer to see. And we compare her travel path with our simulation model in the software. And then here's the final product of the construction. And you can see a number of raised crosswalks are constructed. And you can find them near school areas or in areas where the pedestrian traffic are high. So cars have to slow down to go over this raised crosswalk and also put the pedestrian in a more visible position. And it is also aesthetically pleasing because they are decorated with paving stones. And in terms of bicycle facilities upgrade, and the unprotected bike lanes now become protected with a median separation. And the intersection is signalized and also has a two-phase left turn to facilitate a bike making a more safe turn. And we heard during engagement that parking is important to residents, especially for people with physical disability. To achieve that, we introduced a parking bay, and the protected bike lanes are deflected. And this medium gap that you see not only helps the surface drainage runoff, but also improve the accessibility for people going from their car to the sidewalk, because the obstacle is removed. And you can see it works like a charm in winter. In terms of livability, as part of the project, we have installed these decorated streetlights with a heritage arm to reflect the neighborhood's characters and the history. And we also match the signal post style with the decorated streetlights. So you see a blue fluted pole on the top. And also to maintain the diversity and the neighborhood's characters, the rainbow crosswalk continued to be shown as part of the work. And now all the physical infrastructure is in place. The next step is education, and how are we going to tell people to use this infrastructure. So first, we have this bike along program that our city cyclists would bring a group of people to try out these new facilities to get to know about the city. And also, we upgraded the bike map. It's available online, and we have hard copies in the library as well. And since then, the city has attracted a lot of transportation professionals across the country to come to visit and learn from us. A picture is worth 1,000 words. And look at this kid. He's biking himself from school to home, or from home to school. I don't know. I just captured him one day on 76th Avenue. He was by himself. But imagine the level of independence and freedom he experienced. It's comparable to us when we first got our driver license, but at a much younger age. And since the completion of this 10676 project, the pilot engagement has become the standard for the city to roll out this engagement process. And we even go above and beyond. And now, public space renewal has become part of the neighborhood renewal scope. So now look at renewing parks and playgrounds. And there's still challenges, and we know not everything we build is perfect. Like we heard, there's concern about the buses making turns at the intersection. So we make tweaks after construction, and we also simplified the number of signage that we see on the road, and improvements are still being made. And I want to address that as cities' population is growing and urban density is increasing. Our physical infrastructure needs to evolve to accommodate the fact that to make our city a better place to live, and also people has a choice of their transportation mode. And as transportation engineers, or even as engineers, we need to be innovative. We need to have the view to challenge the status quo and to be part of the change movement. Thank you for listening. I'm Wayne Gong, an Hamiltonian and transportation engineer. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Wayne Gong, for your very interesting speech. Thank you very much to Tori and Mustafa for joining in our little game. And that's just crazy how confusing and thoughtful you have to be just to, thank you very much, just to find a solution to just a simple project such as a street revitalization. We have our next guest coming up today, and his name is Josh Bornia. He is a 2015 electrical engineering graduate from the U of A, and he is currently an electrical engineer in training at Dialogue. He has a Green Associate with LEED, and he is presenting Engineering and Community Well-Being, Looking Beyond the Math. Let's give a warm welcome to Josh Bornia. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. There we go. So tonight, I want to talk to you guys about community well-being, the ways that engineers can make a difference, and then also how we can measure it. So first, a bit about me. I graduated from the U of A in 2015 in electrical engineering, and it's really great to come back, speak at the university. When I was in school, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and events like this really helped me see what was possible, and it's just really exciting. Engineering is really, really broad and opens so many doors. So there's many things that you can do with the degree, but today I'm just going to talk about my experiences in the building industry. So not so much about cities, but how we can build buildings in cities, and how the engineering practice in consulting can impact communities large or small. So I work at Dialogue here in Edmonton. Dialogue is an integrated design practice with professionals from many different disciplines. We're a collaborative urban designers, planners, architects, interior designers, structural, mechanical, electrical engineers, and landscape architects. So there's a lot of people in the office. I worked at Dialogue as a student, and after graduating, I returned and started working full-time. I fell in love with the integrated practice. So my actual job, is to design electrical systems for buildings. But quite often, I find myself thinking about interior design finishes, floor plan layouts, and sometimes mechanical piping systems. It's just kind of what happens when you're surrounded by other disciplines all the time. And it's actually really amazing to see what's possible when people with different backgrounds and skill sets put their heads together to solve a common problem. At Dialogue, we're passionate about design. We believe it can and should meaningfully improve the well-being of our communities and the environment we all share. So with this philosophy at heart, we partnered with the Conference Board of Canada on a research initiative to help develop a tool for guiding and evaluating project design decisions to enhance community well-being. So this provides design professionals with a holistic approach to the design process and examines how the built environment can contribute to community well-being. It's a research report. It's 200 pages long. I'm not going to read it. But we're going to walk through the tool and explore how technical and logical decisions that engineers make can impact people's daily lives in a meaningful way. So these are kind of the results from the Community Wellbeing Framework report. It's a wheel. It takes the results, categorizes them into the different ways to measure community well-being, and it breaks it up into 5 domains and 18 indicators. It's a useful tool to engage the project team members in early conversations and to remind you that everything's connected and everything's kind of together. So like I said, there's 5 different domains: environmental, economic, cultural, political, and social. Within those domains, there's 18 indicators. There's a laser on here. Indicators. And then outside those indicators are a whole bunch of metrics, which are essentially the checkboxes and measurements that you can take to figure out if you're actually making the community a better place, or if you messed up and maybe you're not making the community so great. But at least you know. So how do we implement the framework on a project? Well, it depends on the project, and it can vary based on the nature, extent, and depth. But in general, we follow these steps. So first, you define the project. Is it a detailed mechanical systems upgrade, or are we managing the urban growth of a city? It's scalable. Then you engage the stakeholders. Designers and engineers don't have all the answers, and we're not the smartest people in the room. So it's really, really, really important that you get and find the people who are going to be impacted by the project and get their opinion. They're the people that matter, and they're the people that are going to have the best ideas on what the project should be. So you want to elicit the participation of a wide variety of perspectives. Then you establish a baseline. You got to figure out where you're at before you know where you're going, and if you actually even made a difference at all. Establish targets. So develop your targets early, right, and focus a conversation and advise the development of different options. And then communicate. You got to talk. Participants need to feel like they can voice their opinion safely, because they're not all designers and engineers in the room. You're going to have a whole bunch of different people. And then employ the metrics. So throughout the design, the decisions should be informed by how they perform relative to all the benchmarks. And then use the metrics as a guide to figure out what's going on. And then record it and document it so you can actually go back and see if you made a difference. As an engineer, I like this implementation. It sounds a lot like an experiment or a lab test. It's logical and it's methodical, and it's a way to organize the metrics that are otherwise maybe difficult to articulate and really difficult to measure. Okay, so we're gonna try to get our minds in more of a community sort of idea. I want you guys to, everybody close your eyes. And I'll see you if you're cheating. The lights aren't that bright. Okay. What I want you to do is think about and visualize your favorite place to study on campus or when you were on campus, or just visualize your favorite place to study. Got it? Thinking about it? Okay. Now what I want you to do is think of 1 or 2 words that describes why this place is your favorite or why it's special to you. Okay, open your eyes. We're going to do an activity. I should have told you earlier, but grab your phones. If you can scan the QR code, do it. If not, I'm going to give you guys a link in a minute. So keep those couple words in mind. This should take you, I'm going to give just a couple seconds so you guys can scan it. Okay. And if not, and if you have to get an app, and if you don't have the app, that's okay, because we're going to switch over. There we go. So if you didn't scan the QR code, that's okay. Go to slido.com. Hey, there we go. Punch in your word. What are you thinking about? What do you think about when you have your favorite place on campus, favorite place to study? And we're going to build a little bit of a word cloud. Please try not to use the and because those start to get really big. So I'll give you guys my example. Back when I was a student here, this really cool building didn't exist, so I couldn't study in here. Well, it existed, but people couldn't go in it. It was under construction. So my favorite place to study was in ETLC. There were these floor-to-ceiling windows that were facing the engineering quad. And the seats weren't very comfortable. The tables kind of sucked. But I would go there early in the morning. It was really quiet. It was really nice. And since we go to school in the wintertime and it's dark always, you could eventually see the sunrise. And you could sit there studying and the sun would eventually come up. And it was super nice. Does anybody know the place I'm talking about? I think so, because it was always really hard to find a spot. I had to get there really early. Everybody was always sitting there. Holy cow, this is super cool. Yeah, so that's really neat. Quiet, sunlight, people. Oh, it's changing. Noise. Plugins. That's a good one. I like that one. Stinky. Who likes stinky places? It's okay. I'm not judging. It's fine. Everybody has different things that they like. That's super cool. So, you guys already know what it's like to enjoy a space. And you guys already know, so it's actually going to be maybe a little bit easier to understand this framework. I think it's intuitive. A lot of it is intuitive, a lot of it isn't, but we'll get to that. But we know what it's like to enjoy space. So this framework actually helps us put it on paper and itemize it, kind of like this word cloud, but in a little bit more of an organized way, to figure out how good we did. Okay, so if we can go back to the slides. Awesome. Word cloud. Okay. So we're going to go around the wheel together, and I'm going to show you examples of projects that I've worked on, the engineering decisions made along the way, and then how the communities were impacted. Let's start with the environmental domain. The well-being of the environment and of natural systems is linked to the well-being of people. The building should promote natural systems and healthy behaviors to the users. Do people even like being in the space? Does the project deliver high indoor air quality to the occupants? Okay, so some of you might have seen this space before. It's the new eSurf study space on level 2. So early in the design, we found out that the fans supplying eSurf and ETLC with fresh air were pretty close to capacity. They were kind of struggling to keep up. So in addition to providing a really nice space like this for students to study and work on projects and hang out with plugins, we also upgraded the air systems. This one you might not have seen before. So this is in the basement of eSurf. We replaced all of the old fans with 60 smaller fans, totaling 900 horsepower. The new fan wall has more capacity and can provide higher quality air to everyone in both eSurf and ETLC. So we didn't really need to upgrade them. They were still working. And we didn't add to building area or anything like that, but by upgrading the fans, we were actually able to build a nicer place to spend time with cleaner air. Okay, next. I have a fact for you. Employees with views of trees and natural landscapes take, on average, 9 less sick days a year compared to people that don't. So another important metric to figure out if you're impacting communities positively is about nature. So has a biophilia plan been developed for the project, and did we maximize human-nature interactions? So this is Edson Continuing Care Center. It's in Edson, Alberta. The facility primarily houses seniors who need a bit more medical care in their day-to-day lives and can't live on their own. The whole building surrounds a ground-level garden and gives occupants a place to sit and spend time in nature, while still being safely protected within the walls of the building. So there were quite a few engineering decisions that made an impact on this space in particular. The first being drainage, right? So this whole garden is actually enclosed by a building. So how do you drain the snow out of there? How do you make sure that water isn't pooling in places where you can't, and then you can't use it? The second was the lighting that we put in the space. We really wanted to make it people-scaled or human-scaled so that it didn't feel like you were in an institution. It felt like you were in a park and hanging out and relaxing. The other thing too is that this is still inside a building, so we had to deal with exiting requirements. So there's fire alarm stuff and making sure that people can actually get out if the building's on fire. And as an added bonus, all of the windows in the building facing the courtyard actually look into that park. So not only are you letting people spend time in a park, but a lot of the people around and surrounding it can see the park and see the nature. Okay, an engineer can also help people make healthy decisions like taking the stairs. This is the feature stair at the Royal Alberta Museum. I am not a structural engineer, but I'm told that this thing was crazy complicated to design. That is a lot of rebar. Lots of rebar. So by pushing ourselves to design beautiful structures that invite and excite occupants to take the stairs, you get a result like this. This is the first family day that the museum was open. I'm pretty sure the structural engineers had that in mind, and it was designed that way so that many people could, yeah, good. Cam says yes, so it's good. It would have been way easier just to strap a stair over here and have people go straight up, and it probably would have cost a lot less money, and there were a lot shorter days at the office, and it would have been a lot easier. But then people maybe wouldn't have taken it as much. I bet everybody on this stair right now has no idea where the elevator is. They just saw the stair and they decided to go up it. Oh, these balloons. Okay. Next, economic domain. So can your community afford the services that your project's providing? It doesn't make sense to build a Michelin star restaurant in a community that can't afford it. And likewise, it doesn't make sense to build a really expensive net zero building if it's just going to sit vacant with no tenants because rent is too high, right? So a strong engineering impact in the economic domain could be a life cycle cost analysis, which I'm sure every engineer is going to do at some point in their lives. So does the return on investment for the development of the space account for the ongoing maintenance? So an easy example, like an LED fixture, on average lasts twice as long as a fluorescent fixture. But it costs more, right? So we need to account for the additional replacement cost of the fluorescent fixture lamps and compare it to the LED over its life, right? So the LED wouldn't need to be replaced as often. So you have to look at the whole picture, and at the end of the project, which one ended up costing the building owner more? Next, cultural domain. So the cultural domain focuses on forming bonds of understanding and identity, expressing ourselves creatively and freely, and nurturing a sense of belonging, delight, and play. Is there an opportunity for the project to incorporate visual art or public art? An example is the precast concrete tiles on NREF. Hooke's law, Bernoulli's equation, those are all inscribed, and the art inspires creativity and wonder. But we can put art into engineering systems too. So here's a rendering of the Edmonton Convention Center, which is under construction right now. When it's complete, the installation will be the largest building integrated PV system in Canada. Now, not only does this obviously touch on the environmental domain, but by using the PV cells, we incorporate a Morse code poem, which can be read from the inside. There'll be an installation in the atrium where visitors can read about the poem's significance. From a purely engineering standpoint, it probably would have made more sense to fill that up with PVs and just generate more electricity, right? But you got to balance everything out and realize, well, maybe putting some art in here in this sense is going to have more impact on the community. Okay, giving people of all ages an opportunity to learn and develop is integral to a healthy community. So at the TELUS World of Science, we provided a full spectrum LED light to help their plants grow. People of all ages are attracted to the bright white light and the colorful plants, and they go and they take a look, and it's really cool. They even put some labels on what the herbs have been planted and things. But we wanted to take the sense of learning one step further, and we actually engineered some color-changing controllability there too. So now what we can do is it gives the kids and anybody in the space really an opportunity to do more experiments. Do the plants grow better under red light or blue light? Right? So it's a little bit more curiosity and learning. I worked on this project as well, the engineering garage. So think about all the amazing things that will be built in that space. So our team came together to design a space with ample flexibility to support all kinds of learning, exploration, and development. Have you guys heard the story of Mason Thomas, the boy who had a heart transplant? Did you see it in the news? If you haven't, after his complicated heart transplant, he went to understand a bit about what happened. And so the faculties actually teamed up to 3D print his heart on the PolyJet printer. He also wanted it connected to a TIE fighter too, but which is kind of cool. But if you haven't seen the story, look it up. I think it's on the Faculty of Engineering Facebook page. It's kind of pulls on the heartstrings a little bit. Okay, the political domain. This one is a little bit misunderstood, but in general, you want to make sure that your project gives people opportunities to contribute to their own well-being, right? Can people understand, control, and transform their own environment? Were people given the opportunity to collaborate with the project team? Was it designed for them? And it's the difference between a house and a home, or maybe a sense of ownership. So I'll go back to this example at the Tell Us About the Science Cafe. During the design, we made an effort to include all the stakeholders from day one. So maintenance personnel, marketing, programming, chefs, event coordinators, everybody. And we had a fully integrated team of professionals, engineers, architects, designers, everybody. We really wanted the Science Center to be proud of their space and feel like they owned it and they could do with it as they please. So they can reprogram the lights, move furniture, and the kitchen was designed with enough flexibility to provide a wide range of rotating menu items. Okay, last one. All the way around, social domain. So do people feel welcomed, safe, and engaged? Regardless of their background or physical ability, are there appropriate spaces to socially hang out and engage? I have another fact. Did you know that seniors, on average, need 4 times as much light to read the newspaper as someone that's under 25? 4 times more light. So it's actually really, really important to a designer and somebody doing, or in this case, lighting design, to know who's actually going to be using the space. And you got to think about that. So we have this detail on all of our electrical projects. I had to throw some diagram in here. But it indicates the height at which devices should be mounted in a building. So it's kind of boring, but over on the left side here, you can see our receptacle mounting height. We've actually raised it up a little bit to barrier-free standards. And our light switches, we've brought down a little bit also to barrier-free standards. So if you're in a wheelchair, it's going to be much easier for you to plug something in or turn the lights on and off. And this is a detail that we put on all of our projects. So a simple, small change like that can make a big difference. Lastly, on a bigger scale, you've got the Mechanized River Valley Access Project. This one touches on tons of the aspects that we've talked about so far. You can give people places to sit and interact, get in touch with nature, take the stairs. And those who can't take the stairs can take the inclined lift. And it's free to use. So there's no cost to use it. So we're able to improve the lives of those who can't get around. You can even measure how many people use it every day, which is pretty cool. Okay, so we've gone all the way around the wheel. I've shown you a glimpse of how an engineer can impact communities with both small and large decisions on a wide variety of projects. I talked about buildings, but this can be scaled up to cities and places and things like that. So the decisions that we make as engineers have an impact on the community, and it's so easy to get caught up in the math and diagrams and codes, but every once in a while, you gotta take a step back, look at the bigger picture, and see what the impact of your work is. The framework we talked about helps us understand what that impact is and helps us design for community well-being in a holistic and integrated way. Awesome, thanks. If you have any questions, you can email me, or we're gonna be around. And if you want to download the 200-page report, there's a link to it on our website. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Josh, for that incredible speech. That was a very insightful look into the domains. I know for a fact that I've studied in my fair share of stinky and noisy spaces as well. Our anchor for tonight is Pablo Orozco. He is a 2008 civil engineering grad from the U of A, and he couldn't get enough of that school. So in 2017, he got his Master's of Engineering in Cities Engineering and Management from the University of Toronto. He is currently a project engineer at the City of Edmonton for the new city plan, and he is elite and PMP certified. He's presenting City Plan, Building the Future City. Please let's give a warm welcome to Pablo Orozco.
I was going to introduce myself and leave out the fact that I went to U of T, but Tony kind of got it, so don't hold that against me. Everything I learned at the U of A. Really? So today I'm going to be presenting on the city plan, which is a policy document that the City of Edmonton is creating to show where we're going to grow in our transportation system as we grow from 1 million to 2 million people. So why are we writing a city plan? Well, the boring answer is that we have to. The province legislates that every municipality have a municipal development plan that outlines where we're going to grow, and a transportation master plan that outlines how we're going to move people. However, it doesn't say anything about how we do it or what the final product needs to look like, so we take a lot of liberty and creativity into the process. Usually we do these documents separately, but this time we're doing them together because land use and transportation are very integrally linked. So to kind of show you how we go about doing a city plan, I'm going to use a board game that we developed as part of our public engagement. It was really used so that people can tell us what the implications that they see, what benefits, what trade-offs they have to do as we grow. And it's pretty straightforward. Here is the central core, which is kind of like the downtown, White Avenue, University area. The middle part is a mature area, so everything outside of that, but inside the Henday. And then the suburban area is every neighborhood close to the Henday or outside of it. The red blocks are showing commercial or jobs area or institution areas where people go on a daily basis. The larger, whiter blocks are medium density housing. If you stack them together, you have high density. If you have two of the small blocks together in one lot, that's more of an infill or row housing. And then if you just have one block on one lot, that's more your low density housing. And so this is a very big exaggeration. I know that there's jobs in the suburbs and things like that, but it's just to show how typically North American cities look like. And Edmonton is no different than that. So this is kind of the current state that we have, and I'm going to use this as our quick interactive portion of the presentation. So my first question is, how do you believe travel patterns are in these different parts of the city? Where are people going from the suburbs, in the mature areas, and the central areas, based on where you have the people and based on where you have the jobs? So I'm going to do a quick poll based on how I've described it. Who lives in the suburban areas? Okay, I'm going to pick on Hannah because I was talking to her before. Doesn't have to say anything. I'm going to ask her a question. You just nod if you want. So on a typical day in the morning, let's say, do you usually stay in the suburbs, or you go into like mature areas, or in the central core? Central. I see you nodding that you don't stay in the suburbs. And so typically that's very true of people who live in the suburbs. They travel more to the mature areas where there's jobs, and a lot of times they come down to the central core to study, to work, or to have fun. Who lives in the mature areas? Okay, you're closest to me, so I'm going to ask you. Do you more or less every day, do you stay in the mature areas? Do you go to the suburbs? Or do you kind of come downtown? Okay, so again, your travel patterns, no one's going to the suburbs. So you can really start to see how you're starting to create one flow in one direction. And so it's kind of like a funnel. You're trying to grab a lot of people and put them down these narrow roads. And so what happens when you put too much into a funnel, you get backup, you get congestion. So you start to see some of the problems that we have, or we can have if we have a city like this. Not only that, we could provide transit, but everyone is so sparsely located that it's not efficient. So we just are not able to provide that. But that would be a solution. But because we have this urban form, it's not something that we can use. And now who lives in the central core, downtown, White Avenue? Carrie. Do you mainly stay in the central core? Do you go to the mature areas, the suburbs on a daily basis? I know you might do some trips out there, but what's your travel pattern like?
Yeah, I mean, I prefer to stay in the suburban. I thought I preferred suburbs, so it's a bit of an anomaly.
So you're an anomaly, yes, because I'm going to show you right now. Most of the trips, most of the people in the core, they're able to work in the core, they're able to study there, and they're able to have fun there. So just the length of the arrows is very telling. As you can see in the suburbs, the lengths are longer, so that means your trips are longer. And in the core, the arrows are shorter, so that means your trips are shorter. And shorter trips are usually taken by walking, biking, transit, scootering now, as opposed to driving. It's just that much more convenient to do those trips like that. And so keep these travel patterns in mind as we go through the next slides. And so the task is to get to 2 million people. We have about 1 million right now, and we ask people to add another million. So the other million is represented by the green blocks. But also as we grow, we want to be able to get some benefits. We want to be able to get some jobs. We want to be able to get some frequent transit shown by the blue ribbons. And we want to be able to get some green areas so that people can go and enjoy them, shown by the green tiles there. However, we can't just add these benefits. We have to have enough people, enough critical mass to support these type of benefits. So one way we could grow is business as usual. Let's just grow the way we've always grown. So in that scenario, we would put still high-rises in the downtown. We would infill quite a bit in the mature areas. However, we can't fit everybody there. So we start growing these suburbs, and then eventually, you literally have to go off the board. You need to go expand or you go elsewhere. And so if I was to ask you, what are the travel patterns? They're probably still the same, except they're probably getting worse because you're just creating much more people outside. So not only that, we haven't put all the benefits. A lot of them are still on the table. So we've missed out on adding a lot of benefits that we can have if we grow a different way. So the first learning that we got is that we need to do something different. We need to grow in a different way. We need to condense a lot of those small blocks into larger blocks. In essence, we need to densify. And so that's exactly what we did. We took a lot of those little blocks, made them into these larger blocks so we can fit everybody into the city. And so another way to grow is a center city is what we call it. You put everything downtown. You have some, so it becomes high-rises everywhere. Everyone lives there. You have some infill in the mature areas. And you also, but by doing this, you kind of leave the suburbs alone. So you're not changing that much there. And so now, as you can see, we've added all the benefits. We have frequent transit. We have park spaces, but they're all downtown. And I didn't show it there, but you also have some extra red blocks, so you brought more jobs in. So you've captured all the benefits, but they're all downtown. And so the travel patterns in the suburbs are probably still the same. Nothing has changed that much. In the mature areas, because you've added people, maybe you have more travel in there, and maybe not everybody's coming downtown. But for the most part, a lot of people are coming downtown. But as you can see, some of those areas start to go bidirectionally. And then you haven't lost the benefits that you have downtown. People are probably still taking a lot more trips. It's just a lot more people are doing that. So the second lesson that we learned is that having a central core allows more people to live and work in one area, opening up other options to move around. So using that learning, we can also build these mini downtowns in each part of the city. So you have, still don't have a downtown in the core, but you can have these nodes, is what we call them, in the mature areas and in the suburbs. So in this scenario, you still have all your benefits, except now you can afford to have transit in each part of, high-frequent transit, in each part of the city. You've also been able to provide park spaces in each part of the city. So the benefits are starting to be more equally distributed. So now, and more importantly, we've added some red blocks into the suburbs. So now we have the ability to add jobs, industry, places that people want to go on a daily basis. So we can influence people's travel behavior. And so now not everybody maybe is coming downtown because you have these mini downtowns in those areas. So people maybe might want to work there. You might still have some trips coming to mature areas in the central core, but for the most part, you can create that type of travel pattern. In the mature area, things stay the same, except one very unique thing happens. Maybe people in the mature area now go to the suburbs to work because there's jobs there. And so you can see that arrow right there. And in the downtown, you haven't lost your benefits. You're still getting people doing the trips that you want them to take. So this just shows another travel pattern that we can follow, or another urban form that we can follow. So we start to see the beginnings of another lessons that we can get. If we spread out the growth in a more dense way, we can pass on the benefits to more of the city. And by changing the way that people live and work, putting them more together, you can disperse travel patterns. And by doing that, you have a much more efficient transportation network, because instead of everybody going one way down in the morning and the other way in the afternoon, now you have bidirectional travel. So those roads that are sitting empty, you're using them more. And you have high frequent transit, so you can move more people. So you're really having a network-wide effect on your transportation network. And then the third option that we could follow is a corridor city, so not many high-rises, more medium density along key avenues, and you kind of spread that out in each part of the city. So again, you have frequent transit in each part of the city. You've kept your park areas in each part of the city as well. And your travel patterns kind of stay the same. For the suburbs, you haven't lost that. In the mature areas, again, the same. And in the downtown, you've also kept that the same. But what's particular about this example is that the arrows are kind of all pointing to that avenue where you have all that density. So if you know that people are traveling along there, you can provide very good efficient transit. So that's another learning that we got, that if we follow that type of development, we can capture a lot of transit. So now, my question is, what is the correct way to grow a city then? And if you can play the video. So we gave people a board, we had them that current state that I showed you, and then we asked them, how would you build your city? And this is a time lapse, it's pretty quick, but I don't know if you noticed it, we'll play it again, but they kind of looked at it at the beginning and then they took everything off and they just built their own city. So that's actually very telling, and it's actually hits home the point that I want to talk about, is that everybody has an opinion on how to build a great city. There actually is no one correct way to build it. It's not a Goldilocks problem where you have a few options and you want to pick the one that's just right. Cities have been described as a problem in organized complexity. Now what that means is that cities are too complex to engineer perfectly. There is no one right way to build a city. However, as engineers, that shouldn't mean that we don't try to understand them. So that's exactly what we did. We modeled each of the scenarios that I just showed you. The current state, the business as usual, the center city, node city, corridor city, to try to get all these benefits and see what we can keep. Because the only thing we can do is actually learn, get some learnings that we can use. And so we use those learnings along with our professional judgment. There's a reason we went to school, our public engagement, and other technical reports we did to come up with a preferred scenario. So it's not the scenario, it's a preferred scenario that we think is good for Edmonton. Oops. And so this is a result. This is our land use development plan that shows a network of nodes and corridors. The nodes are shown by circles, corridors by lines. We have a strong central core which expanded to include other neighborhoods because we know we can get some good benefits from that. And by having that network of nodes and corridors, we can have a much more efficient mass transit network. You don't have to bring everything downtown through LRT. You can have people going to different parts of the cities and use a similar service or frequency, and more important, reliability for people to get around. And you can also have a green network. Again, instead of bringing everybody to the river valley, you can provide these green and open spaces in other areas for people to enjoy. So you have that critical mass that it makes sense to invest in that. And access to space or these green spaces is good because many research and many reports actually show that being close to these type of spaces is good for the physical and the mental health of people. And so in the end, what you have is you have the preferred concept, which is where our land use, transportation, and our green spaces creates that integrated city that we believe Edmontonians want to live in. But how do we measure these benefits? So we do exactly the same thing. We remodeled the city, we modeled the preferred scenario. And so by doing that, we run it through our regional travel model, which actually takes where people and jobs are, where we've kind of guessed where they could be based on the land use, and we model what their travel behaviors are going to be. And so we can track things like the number of trips people take, number of trips by transit, the length of people's trips, auto trips, by kilometers by auto trips, which we can then turn into greenhouse gas emission information, how many households, how many cars households have, how many jobs are close to people depending on their age, income, gender, household size. So we can get a lot of information. And we can also get very creative. So what we showed here is trip destinations, so where trips are ending up, where people want to go. And you can see that they start to cluster in some areas. And so what I told our modeling engineer was, why don't we lay over our nodes and corridors patterns? And that's exactly what we did. And so as you can see, those areas start to cluster in those nodes and corridors in the downtown. So we're actually predicting this is where people are wanting to go. So we can get some good benefits out of that. Some good learnings, some good benefits that we can tell to people, and we can explain to them. So I could talk about the results all night long. They're actually online if you want to check them out. But we really have to pick up the big learnings so that we can communicate it to people and to especially council who has to approve this in the end. And so we got some expected results that we feel are very important to communicate. So first of all, we saved more than 5,000 hectares of land from development. So as you saw in the first case where we did business as usual, we literally had to go outside the border. We had to get more land. We had to pretty much annex more land. So by going in a different way, we're able to save that amount of land from development, which is a much more efficient way to run your city. We actively support redevelopment to enable more than 50% of the people living in already established areas. Now, why is that important? It's important because in established areas, we already have infrastructure, we have services. So we just bring people to reuse the services. We don't have to build anything new, and it's much more efficient that way. In the suburbs, we'll always have to build these services, but if we can get the majority of the people inside the established areas, it's a lot easier to provide that. It's a lot easier and efficient to provide that as a city. And then we increase the number of daily walking, cycling, and public transit trips by 50%. So again, by placing people in jobs together, by dispersing travel patterns and shortening trips, we can allow more uses of biking, walking, cycling, scootering now. So we can influence people's travel behavior and try to get them out of their cars, or at least not be so dependent on their cars and have options to travel in other ways. So how do we make that city happen? Well, we have to write policy for it. And so we start off at the top. We have 1 guiding principle, 4 strategic goals, 6 guiding values, 24 city building outcomes, 5 big city moves, 70 intentions, 350 directions. So it's a lot of work. It's not easy to come up with a city like that. However, it's the directions that actually we use to tell administration, this is what you have to do to try to get to that city that we're proposing. And it's also what we use to communicate to council to allow us to make the decisions that we have to make to come up with that city. However, we can't just write directions, they have to be guided by something. And so they're actually guided by that principle at the top and the 4 strategic goals, which actually come from council. They want us to meet those. So this is how we tie something from a map to a vision by writing all that policy. I don't know how I'm doing for time, but I'm gonna go through this last slide quickly. So throughout the modeling and the creation of this policy, we always had this question in mind: what future city are we building together? We took a lot of engagement information that we had, we actually fed it through an AI program. It gave us common themes, which we then took to the public to confirm, and we came up with some of the things that they want us to do. And so I'm gonna share them with you. So first of all, they wanna belong. No matter how they identify inside, what they look like outside, they want to be able to belong here and thrive as a city. They want to live in a place that feels like home. So they want to call this place home, they want to invite people here, and they want to be proud of this home. And ideally, they would like people to come here and also call this place home. They want to thrive. So we really need to provide a city where they have the ability to use their minds and their abilities to thrive and be personally successful, because that ultimately helps the city to be successful. They want access. They want access to parks. They want access to recreation areas, to jobs. So we have to provide that. And they want different types of access, not just be dependent on one mode. They want to preserve. They want to preserve their history, their culture, the cultures of people who were here before us, natural areas. They want to hold on to things that are important as we continue to grow to 2 million people. And finally, they want to create. They want the ability to act on their ideas. And so the best way to do that is to create a different urban form where they can communicate with people. Because when you communicate with people, you share ideas and you change the way you think. And sometimes you act on those ideas. And by acting on those ideas, you really feed your creativity. And that ultimately helps themselves and ultimately helps the city to become much more attractive and creative itself. And so I want to thank you guys for having me. That's our website where we have a lot more information, and I'm going to be around if anybody wants to talk. That's it.
Thank you very much, Pablo, for that very interesting speech. Those are some very interesting ideas on how to grow a city. And thank you very much for not skipping a beat when the lights turned off and on again. You're a true champion. Thank you, everybody, for coming. That wraps us all up. Our speakers will be staying around to mingle and network until 10 p.m. And if you like this event, we have another event coming up on, on October 25th. That is a networking night at Campio Brewing Company. It is soon to be opened. And yeah, keep your eye out for October 25th. Oh, shoot. I would like to bring our attention to a history book, Born to Build. This is a free book. It is not a sleeping pill. And you can get it for free by filling out a form deep in the back over there, and it will be sent out to you promptly. Quick shout out, thank yous. Thank you very much to the U of A and the Faculty of Engineering for helping us host this event. Thank you very much for EnggTALK for bringing this event to life. Thank you to Scott, Wayne, Josh, and Pablo for sharing their ideas and their great work with all of us. And Councillor Tim Cartmell for their opening remarks and his leadership in the engineering community and the city. Thank you to AJ Loudon to supplying us with our interactive art piece, which we should all tear up. Well, not tear up, but like, we should all draw all over it. Thank you very much, Campio, for supplying the beers, and for Stir for catering the event. And thank you, everyone, for attending. You guys could have been anywhere else today, but you chose to dress up, not be in your sweatpants, not just sit on your couch. You guys came all the way out here, and we really appreciate you guys. Thank you very much, you guys. Get home safe, everyone.